Good evening. Good evening, everyone. And thank you for joining us, whether you're here in person or by Zoom. I'm Kate Markert, Executive Director of Hillwood Estate Museum and Gardens, and my pronouns are she and her. As we begin, I'd like to take a moment to gratefully acknowledge the Nacotch Tank, also documented as the Anacostan, the Piscataway, and the Pamunkey. And those are the native peoples on whose ancestral lands Hillwood stands, as well as the really diverse and wonderful native communities who make their homes near us today. We are so pleased to have audiences joining us for tonight's program from here in the theater at Hillwood, as well as the many of you who are attending remotely. And of course, for those of you who are joining us via Zoom, please make yourselves comfortable. Your cameras and microphones are not active, but you may submit questions via the Q&A function in the Zoom menu whenever they cross your mind, and we'll get to as many of them as we can, both here in the theater and remotely at the end. You know what I'm going to say to those of you in the theater right now. Please make sure, yep, there you go. Make sure your devices are silenced. Thank you so much. You don't want to have, the dog barking and all that, yes. So this Saturday is the public opening of our new exhibition, Determined Women, Collectors, Artists, and Designers at Hillwood, which explores the innovative and intrepid women who were collectors, artists, and designers within Hillwood's collection. These women set an example for Marjorie Merriweather Post and also for future women by making a place for themselves and overcoming obstacles through their determination to succeed. Members, of course, can see the show in the Dacha over the next few days as well during our member preview days, and I hope many of you have already had the opportunity to experience this really, really wonderful show. Now, tonight's lecture is part of our month-long Great Homes and Gardens lecture series. Next week, on February 21st, Carl Delatour celebrates the best of maximalism. It's really appropriate for Hillwood. Yeah. In a lecture based on his book, More is More is More. It's our mantra here. Ending this lecture series will be Alex Papakristides on March 2nd, who will present on the varied ways he makes spaces versatile to share with family and friends through his book, The Elegant Life, Rooms That Welcome and Inspire. I think many of you may remember his wonderful installation in the artistic table that we had here a few years ago. Looking ahead, Orchid Month begins at Hillwood next month. In March, we focus on Marjorie Merriweather Post's favorite flower, and have workshops, tours, and colorful displays all throughout the estate. You can learn about all of these and Hillwood's many other offerings on our website, hillwoodmuseum.org. For the paltry few of you, I'm guessing, who are not yet Hillwood members, I invite you to join today and make the most of your benefits this season and all season long. Now, tonight, we are excited to hear from Teri Speight, who is the author of Black Flora, Profiles of Inspiring Black Flower Farmers and Florists. She will discuss African Americans in the world of floriculture and tell the stories of farmers, florists, and other floral creatives who answered the call of flowers, tapped into their passion, and listened to their hearts. Author, podcaster, and garden writer Teri Speight is a proud native of Washington, D.C., as well as a mother, grandmother, and history lover. With ancestral sharecropping roots originating in North and South Carolina, she feels deeply connected with the earth. She's honored those roots through her work as head gardener for the city of Fredericksburg, Virginia, as a founding farmer of an organic CSA farm, as founder and president of Jabali Amani Garden Collective, an online African American garden club focusing on beautifying urban areas in our communities, and as an estate gardener. Teri also works to reconnect people with the soil through one-on-one garden coaching and by offering curated garden experiences for small groups. In addition to Black Flora, Profiles of Inspiring Black Flower Farmers and Florists, she is also the co-author of The Urban Garden, 101 Ways to Grow Food and Beauty in the City. On her podcast, Cottage in the Court, Teri introduces interesting people, discovers unique places, and adds a little poetry to remind everyone to embrace the garden as it is here for us. So now, please join me in welcoming Teri Speight to the podium.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for showing interest in this book. And thank you, Hillwood, for having me here. This is one of my haunts. I'm in and out of gardens all over D.C., but years ago, when I was with the city of Fredericksburg, I bought a bus of little blue-haired ladies up here, and we had the best time. And I just remember sitting out back thinking, they have fans on the lawn. How amazing is that, you know? So it's been a joy, and this is definitely one of my favorite gardens. And I hope Dina Merrill is listening. She was my inspiration, so I'm a true native. So let's get started. This is a book that really is a dream come true, and it really is relevant in so many ways today. I urge you all, when you're ordering flowers for all the wonderful festivities you're going to have this spring and summer, consider a Black florist. There's a whole directory, but we'll go into that later. But consider, because we're out there and we're kind of unique. So who am I? I grew up in Riggs Park, Northeast DC. We went through all the other little things. I am Urban Garden Chair for National Garden Clubs, and that's an honor. Because so many times I'm a member of Capitol Hill Garden Club, and so many times I would go on excursions and things between the garden clubs and garden writers. I'm a member of that, and I would be the only one. And I would always wonder why. What's up with that? Because we are everywhere, and we love flowers too. So instead of backing down, I decided to become a member and get involved to show others and set an example for those that might come after me that it's okay, because we too belong with the earth. That's why we're here. I'm also co-chair of a community garden in District Heights, Maryland, and some of my neighbors have square shrubs, but we're going to break them out of that. I am a determined woman, that is for sure. Sometimes I actually sleep, but my dog Precious she's the highlight of my life right now. She's a lab and boxer, and she is wild. And then my grandsons graduate from high school this year, so now I can really garden. So we are the seeds of our ancestors. So many of my garden writing friends out of state will say things like, we try to encourage young African Americans to, garden, and they're like, oh, that's so much like slavery. No, it's not. No, it's not. That's a misconception, because when you look at horticulture, you don't really see us. George Washington Carver. There's been so many more after him, trust me on this. If you Google it, you'd be surprised. But a lot of young people just don't get it yet. That's why I'm here. That's why I am going to keep coming back and returning, because they need to know, if you do not want to go to college, if there's no trade school that you're interested in, if you can identify a weed, if you know how to prune something, if you know how to sow a seed, you can make a living for yourself. And you can become an entrepreneur. And you don't have to be employed by somebody else. Be your own boss. Learn the skill. It may drive someone else to go to school to learn more about what the wonderful world of horticulture offers us. We are the seeds. We're the ones that put a seed in our hair when we came across on the boat and we made something of it. We are the ones that, like yesterday, my coworkers, I do a lot of food events, and I treated them to an authentic meal. It was spinach, and it was seasoned with spices. The only reason why I offered meat and it was fish was because when we came off the boat, we had to look at the weeds, we had to look at the leaves, we had to figure out how are we going to eat. No one was offering us meat, but we knew the seafood, especially from the West African coast, but we had to figure out how are we going to be able to survive and keep our health in check with what's here. So we kind of know the land. It's in our DNA. This plant material, it is in our blood in so many ways. We need to recognize that some of us, if you're on Instagram, there's a lot of young African American kids that are hooked on this wonderful world of horticulture, whether it's houseplants or gardening. Some of their knowledge, they should read a book or two, but they're excited about it. And that's what makes it special. They are excited about it because it's something that they can tap into. And that's what's important. That's what's important to some of the people in my book even. And I also want to make sure that the missed opportunities of the past in the world of floriculture, we just have never really been highlighted. But there are so many of us that are doing wonderful and amazing work and have businesses and have production studios, but no one really knows because, in a way, for a minute, people were behind in the shadows. Because if you put it out there that you were African American, people may not choose you. And that hurts. It hurts really, really badly. But it's a different day. I made sure that I took my grandsons down to see Mr. Pearl Fryer in South Carolina. This man found a shrub in a dumpster behind a nursery that he was working in. And he created topiaries. He didn't know anything about topiaries, but he just was like, I'm just going to carve this up. And his garden is on the National Historic Register. He is recognized. He is lectured. He is an amazing man. To know that I have been to Bishopville and I have touched this man's hand is so powerful to me. He is very old right now. So his son is not really engaged in the business, but others have taken on helping him out and helping maintain that. The topiaries on this site are absolutely amazing. They're larger than life. And when this man does pass, trust me, the world will miss a true pioneer, because this was not his skill set. He decided to do this. The garden called him. Mahalia Jackson. How many people, well, we all know that she sang. But if you bought flowers from her flower shop, you know she just might sing at your funeral. People didn't really know that. Thank you, April Lee, for hipping us to that. Ethel Early Clark. I love my Negro garden clubs, because that's what they were back in the day. I'm president of an African American garden club, because that's what we are now. But there are some Negro garden clubs that are still in existence. We're looking for more. There's one that's 70 years old down in Tennessee. There's Our Garden Club in Philadelphia that's 90. We're hoping that on their 100th anniversary, we will have a celebration like we did last year at the Ann Spencer House in Virginia. So, Ethel Early Clark, I pay homage to her. She made a difference, and she made other African American women feel their worth, They had their furs, they had their gloves, they had their floral demonstrations, just like everybody else. But we don't really hear that story. Right here in DC, Professor Marie Clark Taylor. This woman was at Howard University. She died not that long ago. But if you can read the slide, her PhD in botany, a black woman? For real? Nah. Most people would never have thought. But she was right here in our midst, and she was very well known in her field. Farming. We farmed because it was a necessity. It was our way to stay afloat. It was a means to an end. We sharecropped. My great, I'm going to get the number wrong, grandfather, grew and gave to the students in South Carolina that were attending college. Why did he do this? Because everybody's got to eat, and everyone did not have money. People still don't have money. We can still eat, but we can also have beautiful things. In my world, there's nothing better than harvesting a salad from your garden and then looking at those zinnias in a vase after the fact. We do grow more than collards. Ava and I were at a garden writing conference one day, and we were talking. We were the only two in the room, and we were talking, and Ava said something. I was like, yeah, because, we really do grow more than collards. It was like, so that's just kind of stuck with us. But it's the truth. It is the honest to goodness truth. How many of us grew up? I remember going down in South Carolina. There was a hydrangea, blue hydrangea, by my Aunt Lucy's house in Gray Court, South Carolina. I remember a white iris there. I remember the sunflowers from my Aunt Edgenora right here in DC. And I also remember my grandma Speight that grew up, she was on Capitol Hill. We would go by there every Sunday after church, and grandma had those same blue hydrangeas. So of course the hydrangea is our family flower. This is taken right here in DC. It's at the Library of Congress. It is the Flower Women of DC. We are desperate for more information on this picture. So if anyone, please help us out, because it's meaningful, because it shows that we really do grow more than collards. If you look closely, we kind of think it's like a hosta in that picture and a fern, but we're still digging for more information and digging to find out exactly where this picture was taken. And that leads me up to the book, Black Flora. Everyone, when the book first came out, everyone was like, oh my goodness, that cover is amazing. That cover was done by a black woman in Hawaii, of all places. And these are some of the people in the book. Some of them you might be familiar with. Kristen from The Great Flower Fight. Mimo Davis, up in the upper right-hand corner. Mimo is kind of like the godmother of black floristry. She is amazing. All of us definitely look to her for guidance and experience. She's been in this industry for a long time, and she is more than willing and ever so happy to share with us, and we value her, just like we value Ira Wallace when it comes to vegetables and growing. The woman that created the beautiful, beautiful arrangement on the front is Nicole Cordier. Nicole she lives in Washington State now. She started in Washington State. She lives in Hawaii now. And she is amazing. Her artwork that she produces has impact. It has spirit. She does this from her head. She is very much into bringing flowers to life, and at the same time bringing a subtle sense of social justice in the midst of it all. She is amazing. Very, very calm. She's very cerebral, and she's very intentional. The flowers on the cover of the book came from her property in Hawaii. That is amazing. When she created that bouquet, if you will, she wanted to make sure that it captured the spirit of the book. which is collecting the diversity of our stories, of the people that are involved, and how we came to flowers. And my friend Gina. Gina started out as a government employee in finance, and she was creating events and arrangements on the side for weddings. And her husband said, "Why don't you just do this full time?" And initially she was like, "Oh, I don't know." She went to a community college and took 3 courses. Gina last year participated in Art in Bloom for a museum in California. She is ever amazing. She forages as well as purchases flowers. Gina and I probably talk every week because the spirit of this woman is amazing. And even on those times when we wanted the book to really get out there and be in everyone's hands, Gina and I would talk, and we just really supported each other. And that is one way that I came to the conclusion that the flowers that each of us create, it pulls us together. It heals us. It nurtures our spirits. Flowers are just amazing. The garden is a healer in so many ways. And we've got more people because it's quite a few portraits in the book, and each of these people has a special place in my heart. I won't go through all of them, but second row, extreme right, Kiara. I remember speaking with her. She was a little hesitant at first. She had been on the Great Flower Fight and she did not win. And that hurts, but it didn't kill her spirit. The flowers spoke to her and said, "Oh no, you need to get up and get to stepping." And that she did. She has 2 beautiful daughters. They're with her almost every step of the way. So they're watching their mom grow with her flowers. When we spoke, she said, I kind of want to have this space where I can do events and do workshops and bring other people to flowers. That was 2 years ago. If you could see her space now, it is beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. She did a festival over Thanksgiving, over Christmas. They did wreath making. She is living her dream, which is something a lot of people just simply don't have the opportunity to do. But instead of being beat down and backing up and going into her shell, she actually has blossomed, which is absolutely amazing. Joy Proctor. You've probably seen her work and not even known it, because Joy is a quiet type, but this woman is a force. She is an international floral designer. I spoke with Joy. We probably spent way too many hours on the phone talking when I did her interview, but both of us have a legal secretarial background. And when she was about to get promoted, she said, this is not what I want to do. I don't want to sit inside behind a desk. She too was doing, an occasional event on the side, creating arrangements. And she came across a young woman that was about to get married. And so she took on the job. She goes, "Well, what are your table arrangements going to look like?" And the young lady said, "Bowls of chips." And Joy was like, "That's a no." And she foraged because she didn't have a lot of money. She foraged for the materials. She bought some, she foraged some. The wedding was outstanding. This young woman does, she's a stylist for Vogue, Bride Magazine, does international weddings all over the place. Joy is a force. Her dad is Caucasian, her mom is from Africa. And she also has taken on her grandmother's farm and has created a space for children to come and learn about nature. So she could have sat and taken that wonderful promotion at the law firm and been miserable. But instead, the flowers called her. And Isha, this is my heart. She too decided she was going to leave the Midwest. She looked for another job. She was heading to North Carolina for an interview, and she stopped in Virginia Beach. She's still there. Her children are now grown. And this woman is absolutely amazing. She will be on the Great Grow Along next month with myself and a couple of other people. She, in the midst of the pandemic, when nobody was having events, and a lot of florists were like, oh my goodness, what am I going to do? A lot of florists went under. A lot of florists had a really hard time. And then there are those other florists that decided, maybe I can do container gardening. Maybe I can take on an intern and show another young person what they can do with their hands. And that's what Isha has done. That's one of her displays. Yeah, she is amazing. This woman is absolutely amazing. And her son has helped her as the delivery guy. Because when we do these things, it is not just about us, it's about our family. It is about survival. It's, once again, making a way, sometimes out of no way. Many of you might have seen or know this woman, Kaifa Anderson Hall. You know those big events that have all the flowers that are just beautiful, and you might take one or two home to put in a bouquet? And what happens to the rest of those flowers? She collects them. She will repurpose them to people in wards 7 and 8 throughout DC that might be blind, that might be physically disabled. She repurposes them. She can take a bloom, put it in the hands of someone that is blind, that can't hear, and evoke a memory of something that was familiar to them in their past. She creates a story with these wonderful flowers being repurposed because they're not done. I've been to so many events that have these magnificent displays. And at the end of the night, it's like, well, what's going to happen to those things? And it kills me when I see the people cleaning up, throw them in the trash. You might want to consider Plants and Blooms Reimagined. She is a force. And she gives back. She gives back from her heart. She is always available to chat. She's always available to inspire another. When we started the promo on the book, we were trying to figure out how can we give some of the smaller Black florists a voice. So Herman Black was one that she was like, I don't know if I can keep this up or not because, I'm doing this independently, but I'm also helping other florists, and I'm not sure. Kaif and I made sure that when we had interviews, we made sure her mom was there. Another young lady in Virginia, she was in the process of moving, and we're like, once you get settled up in your new space, you need to make your presence known. We don't need to hide behind anymore because it is what it is. Whether you deliver the flowers, whether you create the flowers, if someone wants to have a sit-down talk with you, eventually they're going to know you're Black. So you may as well just come out from behind the wall, Kristen Vanderjagt Griffin, who was on the Great Flower Fight, he had an instance when he first started, and a woman met with him, and she could not believe that he was a florist. This young man is amazing. He is truly a star in his own right. And his floral designs, he was named #1 florist in the USA. The flowers called him. And then Aisha. She is, I was chatting with her last night, as a matter of fact. She's out, she thought that the East Coast was too cold, even though she's from the East Coast. Well, we know it's not cold anymore. But she, decided she wanted to go to Arizona. It was warm there. It was, she could grow year round there. It was going to be so much better. She's been out there for quite a while. Guess who packed up and is moving to North Carolina right now? Yeah. She's made a name for herself. She is powerful. She is filled with ideas, but she decided she wanted to make sure that she really shared her experiences, her talent, her skill set with others, not just in Arizona, but on this coast as well. She wanted to come back home, as I like to say. She had every Saturday she was at the markets. She would do floral arranging. You could make your own bouquet. She also has inspired a lot of us to try something new. The dried florals. That was a big hit last year, and she bought it and people loved it. When she started out, she was really uncertain whether anyone in Arizona would buy flowers from her. Boy, was she shocked. Not only did they buy, they kept her afloat. They made sure that she knew she was loved and was important at the markets. She was always sold out at these markets. She never thought that that would happen, but it did. And that's where she's going now. Her husband, Sebastian, Family Land called them, and she figured, for those flowers that I could not grow in Arizona, I can grow them down south. So they're coming home. And I just told her last night, I want to be there when she plants that first flower seed. I want to plant it with her. Because when you can plant on land that you own, there is no better feeling. And she will grow and she will thrive. This young man, Flower Guy Braun, I would watch him on Instagram, and almost every florist that it's in the book was like, you gotta talk to Braun. You gotta talk to Braun. And I got on his Instagram. I don't think I shut my mouth. This young man started with a 6-inch clear cube. The story is in the book. The book will be out in later this spring, but it's going to come out as an ebook because of the price of paper right now. But Braun is a force. Right down in Richmond, Virginia. He has done events at historic homes and gardens. He is very proud of what he has done with his skill set. He was a special education teacher. And a friend just gently asked him, because he always had fabulous events at his home, he entertains, could you help me with my wedding? And the flowers called him. Braun does not like blue hydrangeas. You got to forgive people sometime, but But I consider him a friend, and the most beautiful thing about this man is he teaches, he lectures, he created a support group while florists were going through the pandemic and not sure of themselves, not sure if they would survive or not. He created a support group to help support other creatives. That's impactful. So he wasn't keeping it to himself. And the bigger thing is, when he does an event, he looks for smaller florists to do different facets of the event. So one florist might do the table settings. Another florist might do the archway. Another florist might do the bouquets. He has brought people up and along with him to make sure that they know that he's there to support them. That's powerful. And that's the kind of work he does. Yeah. Totally amazing. Yeah. People would never have known had he didn't come out, if he didn't come out from behind the curtain. We would never know about Braun. And when you see Flower Guy Braun on Instagram or whatever, you think, but this is him. This is his work. 6-inch clear glass cube. So, we're not a monolith. We really do grow more than collards. This is just a part of our genetic remembrance. And even those that might say, I'm not getting my hands dirty. Example, my sister. When my dad was really into his gardening. He's the one that sowed the seed in me. But I was a girl, so I couldn't get dirty. But when he would go to work, I would tell my brother, let me cut the grass. Let me do the pruning. And my brother would let me. But, I know, little did I know. But the funny thing about it, my sister, my dad was 84 when he passed, and my dad and I would sit outside and have corn chips and cherries and talk about gardening and, is it a stilby or is it a stibbly? I mean, we would just have major, butting of heads. But we'd walk around, and he would show me how he knew how to walk through the garden with his eyes closed. And he knew every step. He knew every plant, where he had put what. He loved his hellebore that he called Hellbros. My dad was absolutely amazing. My mom, we planted marigolds and portulaca with her every spring. That was our project, the spring project. And I got to water, and it was like, this is not going to work for me. So I just kept delving deeper and deeper and deeper into it. But my dear sister, who would never get her hands dirty, well, the year before my dad passed, we planted a whole patch of Amsonia hubrectii. And my sister kept saying, I really love the foliage on that plant. And my dad, on one of our last walks, he said, anything happens to me, make sure your sister gets that plant. I'm like, okay. Well, she has more than Amsonia right now. She cannot buy any more hydrangeas or hibiscus or hostas or daisies. Her garden is like the wow factor of her neighborhood. And this is from someone that did not know the flowers were calling her when she was sitting out there listening to my dad and I going, Dad's time to eat dinner now. She wanted him to go inside, and we would just sit out there sometimes till 1 and 2 in the morning. And yes, I had to go to work the next day. But it didn't matter, because the flowers were just a part of his genetic remembrance, passed to me, passed to my sister, and now all 4 of us, the Happy Bunch, we garden with a passion. I'm the only one that is actually writing about it, though. But, in order to write about gardening, you have to have your hands in the soil, and that's the most important part. African Americans are created by nature. Look at African art. We learned from our ancestors. We learned from memory, and everything has a meaning. Lastly, the cottons. They're kind of like I don't want to say my favorites, but I have a deep love for them because these are young people that chose to not get corporate jobs. They never even considered it. They wanted something simple so they could raise their kids and not have their kids be raised by someone else. And they wanted their children to understand the significance of connecting with the earth. The flowers called them when they decided to give up working in the pizza shop. And they had their oldest daughter, Victoria, and they took a job together working in a flower shop, sorting flowers for Mother's Day. They've yet to look back. Amazing couple, not only because they garden together as a unit, but they garden together as a family. He is very, very active in making sure that the kids know about the earth and about nature. I mean, to see a young black man take this role on without any care in the world, and allows his children to be children and pick up a bug and play in the dirt and play in the mud and understand that it is A-OK. That is just powerful to me, because he could be teaching them otherwise. That's my little heartbeat. I just want to pinch his cheeks all the time. He's growing. He is growing like a weed, but he cares. You can tell that this little boy, he's looking at things and he's inquisitive and the questions are being answered. The seed is being sown in him, and he doesn't even know it. His parents know. Carly, she's the saleswoman. Mm-hmm. She can tell you at the market what you do and don't want to have and why you need to buy those flowers. And Titus, once again, he's going to show you what he can do. The beauty of this is they go to the market and there's a little girl that will come and greet them. It all started when their dad gave this little girl a flower every time she came to the market. So now that little girl, who is not black, has become totally immersed in floriculture, and they're all like one. Flowers can really bring us together, but we got to get our hands dirty to know this. Dirty not only in dirt, but cutting for a bouquet, growing for a seed, growing seeds to make more flowers, sowing seeds to make more flowers through our children, through gardening programs at school, through garden clubs, connecting with our kids in the community. One of the reasons why I wanted to make sure Jabali Amani is connected in any community, because we're all over the place. This is Dee Hall, another good friend. Dee is in Virginia Beach, and she's in a suburban neighborhood. And she decided, I don't have enough places to grow in my yard. So she went down the street and talked to her neighbor and another neighbor. So Dee has a subscription flower service, not just from her yard, but from her neighbors' yards too. That's what you call an entrepreneur. Because Dee didn't stop because her land was only so big. She just thought about it another way. And she's still looking for another neighbor that's willing to give up their yard. She had visions of having this urban, edible forest. Well, that may or may not happen. The climate is changing, so right now, who knows what we can grow. Things are definitely changing. The books are going to have to change as well, but she is not deterred. She also pulled all of us together and created Black Flower Farmers. Some of the conversations we have, like, how big are your vernaculars this week? We can collectively get together and buy bulbs. We can collectively get together and buy seeds, or buckets to put flowers in. What are you doing at the market this week? It is an ongoing conversation that we have, and it's nice to know that you're talking to other people that are doing the same thing you're doing and making it work. Another friend, Valerie. The first Black Girl Florist convention, if you will, happened last year in Atlanta, Georgia. I'm not being funny, but I've never seen such a happy group of black women in my life. We had a blast, from creating bouquets, creating hard fixtures. We created like a cherry blossom tree using fake bark on a wooden 4x4 post. It was like, how are we going to do that? We did it. We had branches, there was enough branches so it was flowing out. It was absolutely beautiful. And every Wednesday, there's Flower Club, where it's a theme, there's a color, and we're virtual, because we're all over the place, creating these wonderful bouquets, tips and ideas from others. Why? Because sometimes it feels good to be in the company of someone that looks like you. You can be honest, like, oh my goodness, this water's hard, my hands are ashy, and it's okay. It is okay. The beautiful thing about Black Girl Florists, I am so proud of this. They are going to have a display at the flower show this year. The flower show is back inside, everyone. Yes. From one conference last year, a gathering of women, Black florists, they're going to be at the show this year. Everyone is pinching themselves right now. Trust me on this. Everyone can't come because a lot of the Black florists can't afford to go, But we will be supporting each other virtually, because that's just how we do. Valerie is over the moon about this. So the importance of sowing our seeds now is to inspire the next generation. Most children that come around me, they know they better not talk about growing or farming, being anything about a slave, because I will shut them down. Nicely, but I do, because it's important. They need to know that this is an option, and if they really sat back and thought about it, it's right in their DNA. Just calm it down, put down the cell phone, and think about it. sit outside in nature. You know, one article that really gets my goat, it was another one that came out this year, is like, you know, black folks are going out into nature again. I'm like, what? Just don't insult us that way, please. This is, you know, we've always been in nature. Maybe people just didn't know it, you know? Reimagining the possibilities. Instead of thinking, oh, I could never apply for that, or I could never showcase there, that didn't stop Valerie. They're at the flower show this year. 2 years ago, Juan Boy Ippolito won Best in Show at the Philadelphia Flower Show. First time an African-American woman achieved that goal. Amazing. And now here we're exhibiting there. Encouraging other African-American children and others to get outside and garden. I don't care what race a child is. Connect with the soil. They'll be better for it in so many ways. Encouraging remembering the simple ways of just bringing nature inside your house. A simple bouquet will make you smile any day of the week. And reminding us to play outside. Mary Warshauer, National Garden Clubs, she encourages all of us to play outside because it is play. It's creative play. And you never know, you just might be able to make a career out of it. In our garden club, we call ourselves a collective, not a club. It's a collective. So we are from all over New Jersey, Pennsylvania, D.C., Virginia, and Georgia, I think she's in now. So we're everywhere. We meet virtually the first Saturday of every month, but we're also going into the neighborhoods, no matter where we live, to just make beauty because we need it. It's going to help lift our spirits. And that's my book. And I'm open to questions.
Thank you so much, Teri, for a wonderful presentation. We're now going to take questions from the audience. My name is Katie, and I have the privilege of serving as the voice of the Zoom audience tonight. So for those of you in the theater, please wait for my colleague Sydney to pass you the microphone so everyone in the theater and everyone tuning in from home can hear you. Once you've asked your question, please return the microphone to Sydney so she can easily get to all areas of the theater. So we don't have any questions from Zoom right now. So Sydney, why don't we look for a question in the audience?
We're overwhelmed.
Oh, don't be overwhelmed. Welcome us. There's so many ways to really encourage other African Americans and everyone. I'm just not going to stick with just African Americans, but everyone. Encouraging people to just make a simple bouquet. 3, 5, 7 stems. Bring some beauty into your home and just watch how it makes you feel. And make that special effort. Sometimes my nephew got married last year, and his bride-to-be made the effort to look for African American florists, floral designers, event planners. Why? Because she wanted to make sure that the wealth was shared amongst everyone. And there are florists even here in DC that have extended the branch, so to speak, to encourage other young people to take this on as a career. You know, training them, offering them an opportunity. And there's nothing, in my opinion, better than having a young person go, you know what, I made that table arrangement for that, nice event. It's very encouraging and uplifting. And it's something that needs to be a standard practice.
Thank you so much for your presentation. Looking back historically, early 20th century, 19th century, are there any florists, gardeners back into either slavery or three-people color that you've come across?
Abra Lee is writing a book. I'm not going to steal her thunder. She's a very dear friend. She is writing a book on African Americans in horticulture and floristry. It's due out 2024, I believe. And she has delved deeply into that. And we have found so many different things, so many different people. but no one knows about it. And, you know, in all sincerity, we pretty much stopped at George Washington Carver, and he inspired so many after him to do these wonderful things, but no history just didn't record it. And that's sad.
Because I would imagine it is an extraordinary history.
Yeah. Yeah. When you think about it, close to home, even like Solderly Plantation in Southern Maryland, you know, someone had to figure out, because they did a lot of, you know, whining and dining there back in the day. And so the slaves that came off the ship at the end of that dock that's there, because I sat there and got kind of emotional. You think they came from the hull of a boat, had to figure out how they were going to eat, what they were going to wear, what in the world was snow, and they had to make those tables beautiful when it came time for entertaining. It's in our DNA.
Hi, Teri.
Hi.
Can you talk at all about ways to reach older people who used to garden and are now, you know, they're living in a one-room apartment or in an elder facility, and they don't have access to the garden anymore, and helping them reconnect?
Well, you know, it's funny that you say that. A friend of mine said that her mom used to get, well, pre-pandemic, used to get Meals on Wheels. And she said somebody would create these bouquets, so when they got their meal, they had some flowers. That's something I'm planning on doing this year. Meals on Wheels, I don't care. I'm just dropping off little bouquets to senior facilities, because why not? Why not? This past Christmas, Jabali Amani made little Christmas tree, you know, collecting evergreen foliage. We made little Christmas trees and gave them to a friend of mine's church. She said those seniors were so happy. So it's the little things, whether you're in a garden club, a women's group, or whatever. You know, you can take a soup can, you can wrap it in tissue paper, a little raffia on it, cut something from your garden. If you buy a bouquet for yourself, take a few of those stems. Even if it's just one, take it to a nursing home, to a rehab center. Give it to your neighbor down the street who's elderly. I'm sure they would appreciate it. Also, introducing them to houseplants. You know, may not bloom, but a houseplant, all it takes is one. Philodendron is a good one. It's addictive. It's really bad. I just don't ever buy a Monstera. I'm really hooked on those right now. It's really not good. But but a houseplant, but a simple bouquet, because that senior has all day to sit there and either watch TV or look at that bouquet and go, you know what? My grandma used to grow that. Or my mama used to have that. Or I remember I had that in my hat for Easter church on, you know, Sunday. You never know what memories can come from just a simple bouquet. So as I tell my other garden club friends, open up the door, go outside, and look who's down the street. That's how you encourage others to garden. If you're a gardener, that should be your mission.
I'm going to throw in a question from Zoom really quickly. Someone would actually like to know if you are a person who's never grown anything before, what is a good way to get started so it's simple but encouraging?
Number one, don't overdo it. Get that's one, packet of seeds, and don't sow all of them. Take out 5 or 10 in a pot. If you don't have land, put them in a pot. You can grow a meadow in a pot with a sprinkle of wildflower seeds, especially if they're drought tolerant. You don't have to remember watering them. Or succulent. Succulents will hold water. It just starts with one. A pot, a plant. If you're not an outdoors person, try a house plant, not an African violet. Just don't. Or a calathea, because you'll be like, oh, I killed it. No, just don't. Philodendron, if it's a house plant. If it's outside and you really want some spectacular bloom, think about zinnias.
Thank you.
Oh, right there.
Thank you very much for sharing the wonderful stories of Black voices in a green world. This is really very, very inspiring, and I like how you brought us to where we are. It has me sitting here with my sister thinking of our mom who loved flowers, loved planting, and did Ikebana classes, etc. So
Yep.
it's wonderful. My question is, do you know of floral design workshops that are led by African Americans in this region? So I've been to like Virginia. It's not African American, but we've gone and we had wonderful times making our own arrangements and bringing them home. But I'm not aware of any African American led ones. So if you're aware of them, I'd love to hear.
Oh, we're coming.
Okay.
We're coming. And then Postal Petals. Postal Petals. She is not local. She's in California, but she is bringing workshops here.
Okay.
Stay tuned.
Great.
Well, it's a dual question. Yes, our question is, we all learn about George Washington Carver, and so what was his contribution to Black Flora, and why haven't we learned about other Black florists along with George Washington Carver? Can you fill us in on that history? Because he's obviously an important part of this history as a very valuable scientist. And
Right,
can
we
you
all
chime-
learned about him, but we didn't learn about
anybody else? Yes.
That's for those people that wrote the history books. There's so much in history that is just now coming to light, and it wasn't important, and a lot of it was also not documented. So we're kind of grasping for straws, even with the Negro Garden Clubs, which there were a lot of horticulturalists even in there. Virginia was a hub for Black garden clubs, for real. We're trying to connect the dots. It's hard because a lot of it wasn't documented. The Negro Garden Handbook was 1942, and when we had our symposium last year, we couldn't even find anyone to lend us a copy. We know where a couple copies exist, though.
I wanted to say that my 84-year-old mother, her grandfather was a water boy on a Brightwood plantation, and she had, and I hope she still has them, books with pressed flowers in them.
Yeah.
From the Brightwood plantation that was in Washington, D.C. on the border, and the Brightwood neighborhood, which would become the Brightwood neighborhood.
Yeah.
That's kind of my question.
I am trying to, and I would love to connect with you about that, because I really would love to write a book on the history of Negro Garden Clubs in D.C. However, I'm having a bit of a time trying to find anyone that has the history of it.
84 is still ticking.
Yeah.
Right northeast.
Yeah, and we know they probably evolved from the social clubs, so I'm looking for other people that might know. A lot of it just wasn't documented, or it wasn't important to some. It is important. It's our history.
I just had a question to follow up with this lady's. I live right across from UDC at Van Ness. Does UDC teach, horticultural things? I mean, there's lots of stuff planted up and down on Connecticut Avenue. There's a big move for that. Is UDC involved in that at all?
Well, we're trying to gather the forces, so to speak, to bring it all home and bring it to the forefront. John Manzarinka used to be at UDC, and he has a farm now in Prince George's County. But it's farming, so it's food. But we also want to incorporate the beauty in it. So we're coming. It takes us, we're trying to gather our seeds, so to speak, so that we can collectively come up with a packet of seeds that we can grow, and then we can spread our roots.
Great. I think we'll end with one more question from Zoom. Someone mentioned that they were really inspired how you were mentioning all the folks who were in your book, and they actually would like to know, how long did it take you to put together the entire book?
A year. It was that was my creative COVID experience. Writing 2 books. It was like, what was I thinking? It was interesting, but it was fun. And the conversations were very emotional, very informative, and I can honestly say that I've connected with every person in this book on some level. So in that way, they've sown seed into me, and that's why I'm sowing it back out into our community.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Let's give another round of applause for Teri Speight. Thank you all. Please enjoy the rest of your evening.